Hello everyone, thanks for today's second video within the 5D forecast. You can find videos out here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a bit. It's underneath link ads. There's also a written version. You get to that via the buttons at the top of the page. So essentially we're going to be in for quite a dry 5 days ahead. High pressure going to be dominating to the north of Scotland. The winds are going to be in from the east. There'll be a little bit of rain coming up though, and that's most likely for the southern part of the country. I'll let you have a look at 5-day forecast, find out more about that. This is going to be extending out beyond the 5-day forecast period, having a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. So we'll be going to the 13th of the month, 13th of May, with this update, almost up to the middle part of the month. I'm going to start off with the Arctic Oscillation. So this is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red lines at the end, where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Then this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It doesn't drive anything, it just tells you what's going on. So back into the winter, we can go to the start of January, just there. Back into the winter, the Arctic Oscillation was generally positive, and it stayed positive pretty much through the rest of the winter and into the spring as well. So that tells us that over the past few months had a lot of low pressure up around the pole. We've been strengthening the zonal westerlies through the Atlantic and into Europe. And the latest, however, is that since April, since around the middle of April, this period just here, we've been trending more negative with the Arctic Oscillation. So we've been seeing blocking coming along to the North Pole. Did have a little spike just there, but that only lasted a day or two and then going negative again. This is where we are right now. We are into negative Arctic Oscillation condition, and we're expected to go more negative over the next week or so. So we bottom out somewhere around here in around a week's time, and then very gradually we begin to lift the Arctic Oscillation up again. So as we get through to the middle part of May, we may start to see that blocking easing off a little bit, although we're only returning sort of less negative or neutral really. So it's not a definitive swing back into positive Arctic Oscillation condition. Looks like we're going to be staying on the negative side, I think, for some time to come. Just perhaps seeing a slight relaxing, a slight easing of the blocking signal towards the middle part of May. This is North Atlantic Oscillation observed and forecast chart as well. Again, the black line here tells us where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation. Red lines where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the North Atlantic Oscillation to go. So we have gone negative now with the NAO as well as the Arctic Oscillation. We've got them both in sync, and over the next week or so we are going to be trending increasingly negative with the North Atlantic Oscillation before very gradually again may start to tick back up somewhere closer to neutral. But overall, it looks like both the NAO and the AO for the next week at least going to be quite negative. And then, as I say, get towards the middle of May, we may start to see a slight relaxing of the blocking signal. But for the time being, we've got a lot of high pressure to come to the north. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks. It's upper air temperatures that we're dealing with just here. So this red line here is the upper air temperature 30-year average, about average at the moment. We're going to be going slightly onto the warmer side of average actually as we get later on into the coming week, and then we stay generally around average, maybe a little bit above average, right way through to the middle part of May, which is that period just here. So just because we've got this northern blocking signal over the Arctic, it's not necessarily at this time of year going to do anything particularly cold or anything particularly dramatic with the temperatures. It looks like we will remain generally a little bit milder than average, although the models are sort of flirting with a bit of a cold snap just there around the 10th, 11th. But overall, not a huge amount of concern just there with the temperatures. Precipitation, well, we've got a lot of dry weather coming up over next week, but you have got a bit of rainfall spike for the south there on the 7th over the weekend. There's just a chance it could bring some heavy rain onto the south coast, but for most parts of the country actually we've got quite a dry week to come until we get into a second week of May, this period just here, when possibly we do start to see things turning more unsettled. There's some quite big rainfall spikes, but bear in mind that's right at the extended range of the GFS ensembles. So it looks like a fairly good signal to turn wetter in the second week, and then running up to the middle part of May. But it's a long way off that, and because we're in such a dry pattern, it could well be, but as we get closer to that period, we'll find those rainfall spikes being downgraded quite a bit. So, dry for the next week, away from the far south. There could be some rain on Saturday over the weekend. And then possibly next week, later next week and into the middle part of May, might turn a bit more unsettled. But that is a long way off. Now, despite that, the upper air temperatures are coming out above average. The temperature anomaly is actually a little bit colder than average. So this is from the 3rd through to the 11th of May. This is surface temperature anomalies. And you see most parts of Europe are still actually quite significantly cooler or colder than average. And the British Isles is included in that. I suspect what's going on there is that we're probably having some quite cold nights with this ridge. So although technically the upper air temperatures are quite warm, where if we get cold nights, that's going to lower the overall temperature anomaly. That could well be what's going on there. We've also got easterly winds, of course, with this high pressure, which means that daytimes, if they're cloudy, and today is a good example of that, across the south and the east, a lot of cloud today, and that does limit the daytime temperatures as well. Precipitation anomalies looking very dry for the next week. So from the 3rd to the 11th, we remain really, really dry once again. So this is how the GFS is looking for Saturday then. There's that little system there that might bring some rain into southern counties. Otherwise, a lot of dry weather from this area of high pressure up to the north. But the winds are in from the east, so that will drag in cloud, particularly to eastern parts of the country. We lose that easterly wind a little bit on Saturday. We've got main high pressure up over Greenland and Iceland. It's extending a ridge down across the country. We've lost the easterly wind, and I think we'll have more sunshine as well. So Sunday could potentially be quite a warmish day under that ridge. And that continues into Monday as well. Those 2 days look really quite warm. And then we start to pick up this northeasterly again. As we go through to the 9th, we find the high pressure is still there over Greenland and Iceland. Just begin to get a bit more of an east-northeasterly drift coming back in, possibly bring cooler air in from the east. That's how we look on Wednesday, the 10th of May, with high pressure well to the north. We're bringing in that east or northeasterly wind, and that's bringing cooler air out of Scandinavia once again. So whilst Sunday, Monday, we might see temperatures around 18 or 19 degrees, by the middle of next week, I think we're going to be struggling to get those temperatures up to around 15 degrees with that easterly wind. Then the second half of next week is turning more unsettled. So you notice low pressure, we're running up to day 10 now. Low pressure is starting to develop both out to the west and to the south of the UK. There's a bit of a pincer movement beginning to take place. So by the time we get through to day 10, which is Saturday the 13th of May, it looks like we're in really quite an unsettled spell of weather. We've got low pressure over UK, low pressure's out to the west of the UK, low pressure is in the Atlantic too. Now, it looks like it's setting up quite an unsettled spell, but I have to emphasise that's a very long way off. We have been in a really dry pattern. We've been here before when we've been forecasting the weather to turn wet, and except for a day or so, it's not really come to much. So I think we need to stay very cautious on that and wait and see whether we are indeed going to set up low pressure underneath this blocking feature. East MDF looking like that, so winds are in from the east on Sunday with a lot of dry weather too. Then we've got that ridge coming down, which gives us quite a warm start to next week. That continues into Tuesday. By Wednesday and into Thursday, again, low pressure is starting to develop. We've got low pressure going to our south, just there. Low pressure is to our east with this ridge that's over here, possibly beginning to get the winds back into the north again. And that's actually what the East MDF does. So on Friday the 12th of May and then into Saturday the 13th, wind has gone properly northerly again. So it is as unsettled that as the GFS is, which is looking really quite wet by this point, Saturday the 13th of May. Day 10. But look, the winds have gone into the north, so we're bringing down Arctic air once again. Have a look at the upper air temperatures. You see that the -5 ice front is coming back into Scotland, and that will probably start to progress southwards if we could go on another 24 hours. So as we run up to day 10, there's a lot of uncertainty there. It might turn very unsettled, or it might actually we might actually have another push of winds from the north. I think we need to wait and see where it's all going in the second week of May. Finally, just having a look at the CFS V2 for next month. So these are 500 mile heights broken down into week periods. So first week period takes us from the 3rd through to the 9th of May, and we find we've got a big ridge here to the north of the country, with that trough out to the west. The winds are in from the east as well, lots of dry weather, very good representation really of the weather we've got coming up over the next few days. Now, the CFS is a bit different to anything that we've seen so far for week 2. So this takes us from the 10th through to the 16th of May, when it's actually building the ridge and the heights to the south of us. And we've got this low pressure out to the west and also trough over Scandinavia. What that would do is bring up much warmer air, actually, from the south-southwest. There's not much sign of that with the GFS and ECMWF, have to say, but that's what the CFS wants to do today, bring up some warmer air from the south through that second week of May. So a lot of uncertainty about the second week of May, where things are going there. Week 3 is the 17th through to 23rd of May. All looks rather odd. So I've got a ridge through the central part of the Atlantic, bit of a ridge over towards Norway. There's a ridge through the Med as well, and then this big white area, which I have a feeling will probably be, when we get to it, if it came out like this, that white area will probably be some sort of trough within the 500 millibar flow. So I'll put a question mark there because it doesn't actually show a trough, but I suspect it would be quite unsettled there through that period. And then finally we go to week 4, which is the 24th through to the 30th of May. And look at this, we're finishing up back where we started, with the above average heights to the north of Scotland again, and the winds are back in from the east or the northeast. So a lot of dry weather coming up then for the final week of May. Realistically, I think the second week of May is uncertain at the moment, so there's probably not a great deal of point looking beyond that. For the next week, I think we're going to have loads of dry weather. There will be a little bit of rain down in the south, particularly focusing for that on Saturday. But a lot of dry weather over next week. And then we get through to week 2. Will it turn really unsettled like the GFS wants to do? Will it turn colder from the north like the ECMWF wants to do? Or will we actually bring up some warmer air from the south like the CFS? It's still to be determined. So watch your space, and you'll find out fairly shortly, I would think, what's going to happen in the second week of May. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.